What is going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadski, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video. Treasure map is slowly approaching. It's going to be coming out on Wednesday morning, of course. So I wanted to make sure that we got preparation in regards to not only getting you guys prepared, but also showing you guys my own personal team that I'll be building for the upcoming treasure map. So what you're seeing on here, we are on the database, and or the database planner website, and these are teams that I've built with none of the new 11.5 anniversary characters having to be pulled on them. I will show you guys my team in like once we go through this one right here. So let's just jump into things here. So we have the first fight, which is versus Shanks. Shanks is considered the like normal boss fight. The pudding is considered to be the intrusion battle boss fight. So keep that in mind. So versus Shanks, you got characters Strength, Dex, Int are receiving cooldown. So build around this ideally. Stage 2, there's 9 turns of bind on the top row, full board of badly matching slots, normal attacks only, pretty typical stuff. 9 turns of despair to go alongside the bind, very annoying. You have full immunity, and then there is an intimidate against attack up and orb boost, giving them -1. There is 7 turns of increased defense. So this is the team that we have for this one. Because of the bind and the despair, Pomsky is actually amazing for this because his special ability just straight up says you remove bind and despair by 6 turns. Like, that's the only real reason why you need him, because just that alone gets rid of both this and this with sockets in mind using forbidden tomes. Now, the badly matching slots we get through pretty easily because of this support attaching to Sanji. So this support is the Germa 66, and it basically says once per adventure, when the enemy inflicts you with orb change or orb randomization, changes all slots into tandem and then makes psi recovery tandem matching for 1 turn. So basically, whenever the enemy changes your slots around, you get a full board of tandem. It's just so good, really OP support. And we have this rare recruit Sanji. Now this Sanji, he does go ahead and reduce increased defense by 6 turns. That's the main reason why we have him. With Zora's captain ability, he says that if the crew uses a special to remove increased defense, add 2 turns to it. So Sanji technically removes 8 turns of increased defense. So that will allow us to get around this. Be careful though, because if you are inflicted with despair, that will not add the increased defense to Sanji's special. So you want to use Pomsky first to remove the despair, then use the Sanji, which will enable it to be an 8-turn increased defense removal. So with the Sanji and the Pomsky special, you get around all of the gimmicks on this stage. Hopefully it's enough to kill. If not, we could put something else on here to trigger, to give us some damage potentially. But then we move on to the final stage. You see on this stage here, Shanks will switch one of your crewmates into the captain position. They really want you to use the Jinbei or the Sanji rare recruit. So those characters have like captain swaps shenanigans. That's what they want you to do. And if you end up using that strategy, you can kind of just ignore this. But with this strategy, essentially any one of these 4 characters will become the captain. Now what you can do is during the preemptive attack, if the enemy just goes to target a character that you don't want, you can immediately reset the game. When you relaunch the game, it will always pick this position right here where the Luffy is. So you can put whatever character you want as long as it's in the middle right position. When you reset the game before the captain switch occurs, it will always select this, which means you can have Luffy go to the captain position. You could switch it around, start with Luffy, and then have Nami Karina as the middle right position to make them go to the captain. Ideally, one of these 2 being the captain because they have the better captains out of the characters on the crew. So that allows you to get around that. There's block slots. Now, realistically, you don't have to worry about it too much because you see that like the Brûlé support will get around the block slots. If you don't have Brûlé support, it's not the end of the world because the switch effect of Nami and Karina gets around block slots by itself. So that's really cool. So you could use that to your advantage. But you also have the attack down. So attack down is removed via the Zora special. Zora says if you have 3 or more Straw Hats or 5 or more Egghead characters, you remove 7 turns of attack down. So that's dope. There is also going to be 6 turns of damage threshold, 5-turn Rainbow Shield, 5-turn of Resilience. So this is why we have Nami and Karina here, because their special ability will remove damage. No, it's this one. The Resilience by 6 turns and Rainbow Shield by 6. So we have the Rainbow Shield removed and we have the Resilience removed. So we just have the damage threshold to get rid of, which is why we have Brook, because Brook with double special, when you have him level limit break, he does remove 5 turns of threshold, and then it becomes 10 with double special, and that's how we get around that. So this team actually is pretty straightforward, like doesn't really use too many high-end like summonable characters either, so this one I would say is relatively accessible. So what I want to do now is show you guys my team that I have for this upcoming fight. So this is the team that I have. If you guys haven't seen my community post, I ended up going to 10 multis on part 3. On the 10th multi, we got Zoro and Lucci. So got pretty lucky, all things considered, because it could have gone a lot worse. But we ended up getting them, and I end using them as the captain here. With both captains as Zoro, we can use one on stage 2, one on stage 3, which helps out a lot. We have the support of Mihawk attached to Zoro, which does end of turn damage on the final stage, which allows us to get around the resilience buff. We're still using the same strat though of the Germa 6 support on a Sanji character, but we have the rare recruit Sanji to do the captain swap shenanigans. And we also are still using Luffy with the Brûlé support. Luffy doesn't really do much for the team, but he's a high point booster unit, so we're going to use him. Brûlé support helps us out a little bit there. Pudding doesn't really do anything for this team, and then Pomsky as well for the bind and the despair removal. Sanji does do bind removal, but we still need to remove despair, so Pomsky is like the highest boosted unit that we can use that will fulfill that role for us. So a relatively similar team, but still the fact that we have Zoro on our own team as well, with double Zoro, it allows us to get around a lot more things with higher points. So, you know, obviously we're going to be using that. So yeah, obviously a little bit different, but more as well the same, you know. So all things considered, it does work pretty well. So with that being said, let's go ahead and move back over to the team builder and have a look at the Pudding fight. So as we mentioned, Pudding is the intrusion battle boss fight. Characters that are powerhouse, cerebral, and free spirit are what you want to build with here. You can see the recommended units. They really want you to use Katarina Devon and Van Orga, which is such a pain because, I mean, who owns these units? Like, let's be real, no one owns these characters. But either way, they really want you to use them because of like this effect here. This really nasty chain lock is very pesky. So the best way that I have found without having to use Van Orga is using Marcus Mars. So this guy right here allows you to get around 10 turns of chain lock or 10 turns of chain coefficient reduction. Obviously, there is a caveat because in order to use his special ability, a very, very high cooldown, and he does get only 7 turns of cooldown there. He gets 5 turns of cooldown here. You really want to use him as a captain because as a captain, he will give 15 turns of cooldown to 5 Elders and Celestial Dragon characters. If you use him as a sub, he's not going to receive that 15 turns of cooldown, and more likely than not, he will not be ready to go. So very important that he is the captain if you aim to use this kind of strategy. So by using his special ability, we can get around the chain debuff on stage number 2. We also have a 70% health cut, which is really annoying. We have paralysis slots to deal with as well. There is attack down, and there is normal attacks only and stuff. So what we are doing is we're going to use both Lucci and Marcus Mars on this stage. So Lucci with the paralysis removal in his special will get around the paralysis slots. The versus special gets around the attack down. Lucci also gives us a ton of beneficial effects. So with Mars and Lucci special, like stage 2 is completely dealt with. The reason why we do that is because you see on death, the enemy does cooldown reduction and then like a special lock barrier, cooldown lock barrier on those specials. So they make it in such a way where you basically have to use your top row specials on that stage. It's really, really annoying. So what it means is that we have the rest of the crew dedicated to dealing with everything on the final stage. So the final stage does have a lot of annoying gimmicks. 7 turns of paralysis. So not only there's paralysis slots on stage 2, there's paralysis, the debuff itself, on stage 3. There's a chain attack down. There is normal attacks only, which is kind of whatever. 10 turns of despair, which is a lot. 9 turns of threshold. And then you've got the full immunity. And then when you kill the enemy, 80,000 death hit. So yeah, really, really pesky stuff. So in terms of getting around all of this, as we said, we have the 2 specials at the top for stage 2. We have Doflamingo support attached to Marcus Mars, so that on the final stage we receive a chain lock that will enable us to essentially bypass the 2.75 times chain attack down. Now, we have Frankie here. Now, Frankie is just the best character that I found to work in this role. Frankie is not necessarily required, but this combo of Frankie plus the Straw Hat support is really good, because what happens is Frankie's special removes 6 turns of despair and paralysis. This support says anytime you're inflicted with bind and despair, if I can find it, let's so bind right here. Once per adventure, when you're inflicted with bind, despair, or paralysis, remove it by 2 turns. It's literally rarely support, but for other Straw Hats that are not the original East Blue Straw Hats. So it means that we can remove 8 turns of despair, 8 turns of paralysis with Frankie alone, which will enable us to get around this and get around all of this with the sockets in mind. So by getting around that, and then the support giving us the chain boost to get around this, we just have to get around 9 turns of threshold. So I decided to put Jupiter in here because his special ability will just remove threshold completely, and because we are using like more 5 elder characters, I just decided to put additional 5 elders to allow the crew to work to get all of their specials to activate when you have like all of the 5 elders present. So another thing as well is that we have Walkuri here. Walkuri with his EX Super does allow you to get 70% damage reduction, which you could use to tank the death hit on stage 3. Realistically though, you don't need to do that. Like, I'm just deciding to run these 5 elders here. Realistically, you don't need the 2 5 elders at the bottom. As long as you have a way to tank the death hit, this will work just fine. Obviously, if you don't have this guy, you will have to replace it with a threshold remover of some kind. If you don't have this guy, there is one other thing you could do potentially, which is on stage 1, hopefully you're able to use a special, and then use a special like Izo and Okiku, for example, which gives you a 3-turn chain lock, like using a chain lock before reaching stage 2. But I know sometimes in treasure maps there's times where you can find like the special mini boss on stage 1, which gives you cooldown and then it runs away, and then it means you don't get a chance to use a special on stage 1. That does happen, which means that you would be kind of nerfed and you would just lose because of this 7-turn chain lock that in partnership with on stage 3 you have this. So I don't really want that to happen. So realistically, you need someone to remove 7 turns of chain lock. The other option obviously is Van Augur. So Van Augur obviously removes that. So it's just kind of frustrating the way that they've kind of designed this one. And that's pretty much it. That's what I have for this fight. This works, and then just having someone to give you some kind of damage reduction, which, as I said, Walkuri would work in that fashion. So it just depends on what you own. Moving on to the team that I am using to take on this fight is going to be this. So I am still using that same strategy of Marcus Mars as my captain to get around the chain. We are going to be using friend captain Lucci, of course, and then Lucci and Marcus Mars, obviously being the friend captain Lucci, we use both of those specials on stage 2 to deal with everything. And then on the final stage, we have the rest of the specials to deal with the gimmicks. So, of course, we have the 10 turns of despair, which is pretty annoying. So we have Pomsky to deal with some of that. We have the Rayleigh support to help us deal with the additional turns of despair that we will be inflicted with. And then in terms of the paralysis, Lucci can deal with that on the final stage. We are going to have the chain debuff as well, but Lucci gives us a really good chain boost, so that doesn't really matter. Now, the damage threshold is obviously an issue as well, but Lucci also deals with the damage threshold, so we don't really have to worry about that either. And then we have the Mistims support attached to Sanji, which says when we're inflicted with paralysis or a special reverse, then we get like a 85 or 70% damage reduction. It works really well, actually. And because on the final stage, all the team will be inflicted with paralysis, that will automatically trigger, ensuring that we get that damage reduction effect. So I think this is going to work relatively fine. I don't see there being any glaring issues at the moment for my own personal team against this one. But if there are issues, definitely let me know. I know that sometimes we prepare these teams a little bit too quickly and we do miss some things. But anyways, guys, that is going to wrap it up for me. I really hope you guys enjoyed this one, and hopefully you get your teams prepared, ready for this upcoming treasure map. Hopefully you enjoyed it though. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all of the content that I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. On that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.